So now let's go over some basics of owning a hedgehog and what they are. A hedgehog is a mammal, and when you have a pet hedgehog, they're typically among the African or European types. They're primarily insectivores, but they do like to eat animals and plants too. Some of their favorite things are chicken and dried peas. And keep in mind that they are a nocturnal animal, and so they'll typically become active when it's usually time for you to go to bed. So when you have a pet hedgehog, the most common type that you will find is the African pygmy hedgehog. These are the types that breeders typically are selling and that you can find in pet stores. And once you own a pet hedgehog, you should know that they typically live between 4 to 6 years. Some can live up to 10 years with extra good care and good genetics. They are typically a solitary animal, so they don't want other cage mates. Very rarely will you want to keep two hedgehogs together, and they do need affection. They seem like they don't like it, but they definitely do need it, and they need time outside of their cage to explore. So once you own a pet hedgehog, there's some basic supplies you're going to need. You'll need a cage that is longer than it is wide and tall because they're not climbers. They like to run around. You'll need some bedding. The best types is using recycled paper or pulp or any type of fabric that they can't snag their claws on. They'll need a little hut that they can go inside and feel safe and fall asleep in. They'll need a water bottle or a heavy bottom bowl so they don't tip it over. Dry food, typically you can just use cat food of a good quality. They'll have to have treats and snacks. And finally, depending on where you live, they may need a heating pad if it does get too cold for them. So when you're picking out your hedgehog, first you want to make sure that you're finding a reputable breeder. Typically they're certified with, it's usually like the American Hedgehog Association, something of that sort. And that just means that they're breeding hedgehogs in a good setting where they're not going to be exposed to any genetic diseases, particularly wobbly hedgehog syndrome, which is often fatal. You want to make sure it has good eating habits and good bowel movements. That's the best way you can tell if they're healthy. Make sure that they have no wounds or abrasions. They're really helpless creatures. They don't like to act like it, but they really are. And just making sure that they don't have anything that seems off about them. So you as a hedgehog owner need to make sure that you're keeping their cage clean, changing the bedding, just making sure that they're not going to be exposed to anything that has went through them already and is growing possible mold or bacteria. You need to make sure you're giving them social time so that they don't just become isolated and depressed. You can give them baths. Some like it, some don't. It just depends on the hedgehog. Make sure you're always giving them fresh food and water. They do need regular toenail clippings, as I said. They're helpless animals. And just above all, you need to make sure that you're giving them the most love possible. So now we've went over the basics, so let's go meet the real life, the infamous Humphrey the Hedgehog. So as I said before, you're going to want to make sure that you find a good dry food. Like I said, typically just cat food is fine. Make sure it's made with real ingredients. Don't just be giving them corn and other bad things. And this one specifically has no ground corn, wheat, or soy. And as I stated before, paper works just fine as a bedding. These are some of my rats. They're not required for hedgehog care, but they do add to your life. And this is Humphrey's cage. Well, it's a tub that my friends drew on. And these are some toys that I put in there. Mostly he just kicks them around. That's his food and his water bowl. That's him ignoring me and his blankie. And then I do have a heating pad since it's the frigid temperatures of Laramie. And so now let's just see what happens when you grab a sassy hedgehog out from his little sleeping place. You can see he's not very happy to be woken up, but there he is for the camera. So Humphrey's day starts with me forcing him to get up, and then I just let him kind of figure out where he is, let him wake up a little bit, let him sniff me and see how he's doing. So one of a hedgehog's favorite things to do is what's called tubing. And it's just where you give them a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube that's been cut down to size, and then they get all excited and they think, ooh, I can burrow in this. This is nice. And I don't know about other people's hedgehogs, but once Humphreys ran around in his tube for a little bit, then he decides, this is the time. This is the time I'm going to poop. So the last part of Humphrey's day where I've been torturing him, as he'd like to call it, is I like to make him interact with my other animals. So this is him scaring Ralphie, because Ralphie's a biggie.